A very good morning to you. How are you doing? Beautiful Thursday morning. It is Karibu Sana. This is your clinic. It is the day for the relationship clinic. This is where we talk matters relationship, focusing on the marriage relationship. Today we want to focus on a very sensitive topic, but very important. It's the whole aspect of abuse. Abuse in marriage. Usually when we talk abuse, we usually think about physical abuse. But are there other forms of abuse? But most importantly, at what point do you say enough is enough? Enough is enough, kila mtu aende njia yake. At what point do you say that? This is sometimes a very difficult conversation, especially among Christians, because God hates divorce. And so sometimes you're encouraged to stay. But is that practical? What's the win if you stay and we collect you in a body bag? So where there's abuse, at what point do you say enough is enough? I'm out. Ama uvumilie tu. Those are some of the things we want to look at as we talk about abuse in marriage. And if you have a story to tell or an experience you want to share or a question you want to ask, feel free to do so. In fact, earlier on, I was asking this on the radio show, and Phyllis, all the way from Saudi Arabia, sent an SMS, and she says she was once a victim of night and day fighting. Any small argument led to her being beaten like a snake. And she says, imagine, usiku nimeota with my ex-husband akinichapa na akinifukuza na watoto wangu. It's now 5 years since I left him, and the trauma is still real 5 years later. So this is a serious issue. And so if you have any question you want to ask or an experience you want to share, feel free to be part of this conversation. Where there's abuse, at what point do you say enough is enough and you call it quits? Kama kawaida, bench nimeweka hapo nje, watu wakae kama wamejisanitize na mkae 1.5 meters apart. Na kama mko na maswali muweke tayari as we get into the clinic today. This morning we are talking about abuse in relationships, more so in marriage. At what point do you say enough is enough? We are hanging out with relationship coach and also executive director, Dignified Children International, Phoebe Maina. How are you doing?
Good.
Your network seems to be in a katika. We are hearing you, but you're coming on and
I'm
off.
sorry, I don't know.
Can you hear me well?
Oh, I don't know what to do. Yes, I can.
Okay, now we can hear you well. Let's pray it stays stable through the interview, because this is a very these are pertinent issues we want to talk about today. Let's begin by defining abuse. Usually when we talk about abuse in marriage, the first thing we think about is mangumi, physical violence, but I'm just wondering, is that the only form of abuse that people experience in marriage?
No, I don't think so. There are so many forms of abuse, but most of the time, the abuse that that is known by most people is physical, and that is the only one that people say, if he's not beating you, the abuse. Like the other abuses are ignored, but we have financial abuse, we have emotional abuse, and now physical abuse.
Okay, when we talk about emotional abuse, what exactly is emotional abuse?
Emotional abuse comes in a way that the person is not necessarily physical, but his actions, the things that he does, the words he uses towards you, they are meant to manipulate, to demean you, and to put some doubt, and also to bring your self-esteem down.
You also say this
in order to control you.
Oh, so the purpose is for them to control you.
Yes.
What about you? You also mentioned financial abuse. How does financial abuse look like?
Financial abuse can be both ways, where a spouse uses money to control you. Like maybe he's employed or he has a lot of money than you, and so they decide, now that you're my wife, you're not going to work, so you will stay at home and I will provide. But sometimes it's quote unquote, because he will say, I don't want you out of the house, I don't want you to have this and this kind of friends. I'm the one who will be doing the shopping. So your work is to stay home and take care of my family. So that is also financial abuse because he doesn't have you the freedom to have your own money and also to make financial decisions. And then on the other side is where they control your money. Like they're the ones who control everything financial in that house, whether it is yours or his, and you don't have a say in matters of finances.
Wow. You see that and you remind me some time back, I think it was last year, I hosted a lady who, her husband actually tried to kill her. He ended up committing suicide. And some of the things you're saying are the things that were happening in the relationship. And at that time, she didn't think anything out of it. The husband would not let her out of his sight. He would come to work to pick her and drop her home. Sometimes you look at things like those and you think, ananipenda sana. They have to sit together. They have to walk together. Even when she's going home, the man has to be there. But it was all about control. Let's talk a bit about verbal abuse, because that is one that goes on a lot. The other day, there was a clip flying around on social media of this husband and wife who were arguing in front of their children, and the language was just unbelievable. So talk to me about verbal abuse.
Verbal abuse, yes, most of these spouses, and it could be either a man or a woman, where because of their inner wounds, what comes out is words that are also meant to demean you, to bring you down, and also to make you self-doubt yourself and also hate yourself. So they might use body shaming. They're like, look at you, why did you have to get to public dressed like that, or they're like, you've become so big, I'm even ashamed walking with you. Such kind of things. They use different words just to make you feel bad, to hurt you, to manipulate you, and also to make you feel you're not worth and you're not enough.
Wow. When if it's physical abuse, people can see the effects. Maybe you have a black eye, maybe this person broke your arm, maybe you've got bruises and things like that, and people say, hey, you need to flee. But when we talk about emotional abuse, when we talk about abusive words, when we talk about financial abuse, those things, we can't see them necessarily physically, and they tend to go on for longer because people don't know, people don't see it. I'm just wondering, what are the long-term effects, say, of verbal abuse or of emotional abuse? What are the long-term effects on the person who's on the wrong end of this abuse?
One, the victim develops a very low self-esteem, and they hate themselves. They lack confidence. And eventually, when this continues day in, day out, they get into depression. Because, you get confused and your feelings are invalidated. And so you don't believe in yourself anymore. And within no time, you lose yourself.
Wow. There's a gentleman here, I wouldn't mention his name, but he says, I was in an abusive marriage for almost 3 years. And after I got enough, I left my wife. I'm now married to a loving lady, and we're expecting a baby anytime soon. And he says, men also go through this abuse, but it's hard to explain, especially when it's not physical. Ladies talk a lot, but men, we tend to hold things on the inside, and I'm just wondering how that affects us. And we have a good number of men who probably go through verbal or emotional abuse, and we don't talk about it. And I'm just wondering, what does keeping it on the inside do to us? Because sometimes you're ashamed of talking about such things, especially when you are with your group of men. Your wife is abusing you. What kind of a man are you? Those are some of the statements you get. So I'm just wondering, for the men who go through abuse and they don't say anything, even some go through physical abuse, how does that affect them from the inside?
Actually, it's very destructive. And if they don't seek therapy, and it also takes self-awareness to know that you are in an abusive relationship. Sometimes this is something that maybe you are used to since childhood, and so it can go unnoticed. But it keeps killing you slowly. And before you know it, you cannot even tell what is abuse and what is not. You think that is the normal. Yeah.
You know, I'd never thought of that there's some people who abuse was so much the order of the day that it's just part of everyday normal life. And so for them, they don't even see it as abuse necessarily.
Yeah, so many, both men and women.
Wow. Someone is asking, Cold War, kunyamaziana. You're not talking to each other for days. Can that be considered as abuse?
Yes, it is.
How is it abuse?
Because this person, sometimes the person doesn't want to face the issues at hand. And so they use Cold War to manipulate you. Maybe it's something they did to you and you were angry. And so they choose silence to make you think that you are the one who was in the wrong. So they go quiet for quite a long time, and you as a victim, because you want to be at peace and the silence is disturbing you, so you go back to them apologizing for things that you never did.
Wow.
And that is what they are looking for when they go silent.
You know, sometimes when this...
Because they don't want to discuss the issues.
Oh, they don't want to...
They don't want to discuss the issues. Yeah.
Okay. You know, I'm just thinking, and even referring to the video I talked about earlier that was doing rounds on social media a couple of days ago, because children were there. I mean, these are teenage children. They're probably teenagers, and they're witnessing and hearing all these things. And sometimes, as married couples, when we are doing our thing and going through our heated arguments and all this manner of abuse, we fail to think about our children and the kind of effect what we are displaying will have on them. So I'm just wondering, how does this affect children? The children who are exposed to whether it's verbal abuse or even physical abuse, they're constantly seeing their parents at each other. How does that affect the children?
Actually, it affects the children very much. And that is why the abusers we see today and the victims we see today, most of them are a result of abuse in childhood. So, yeah, you grow up seeing your mother and father abusing each other or fighting or emotionally bringing each other down, and you think that is how life should be. And so you grow up with trauma, which if it's not addressed and if you're not aware about it, it affects your adulthood relationships because you carry inner childhood wounds. Yeah, so you grow up thinking, like that abuse or rather that exposure to the children, it brings out a little angry child.
Oh, so you can find this kind of children reacting, maybe even in school they become violent and things like that because of what they're exposed to. Wow.
Yes.
There's a message here. Actually, keep going.
Actually, most of them, because I work a lot with children, and I see that a lot because they will come and confide with me, or rather during a discussion, and they will say, I have watched my dad beat my mom since I was maybe 4 years or since I was 8 years, and this has really, really disturbed me, and I don't feel like I would want to get married. And then another one would be like, I'm so angry about men. And so they grow up unconsciously thinking that they will revenge for their mom to any other man that comes in their life.
Wow.
So that bitterness is carried to adulthood.
Is it possible that the children were exposed to this kind of lifestyle, that eventually when they grow up, they may also become people who abuse others in relationships?
Yes, actually, most of the abusers with some trauma carried from childhood. Yeah.
Wow. There's a message here that says, talking about abuse, it says it totally kills and demoralizes you. And by the time you are done, you don't even know yourself anymore. This person says, it took me 4 years to heal. The church really helped me a lot. Shortly, we'll talk about, are there signs one can see? Now, even before we get into that, commitment, marriage, relationships, when we are in this phase of dating, are there red flags and signs we should not ignore that point towards that this relationship will be violent? We'll talk about that shortly. If you have any questions for us today, 20316 is the SMS line. WhatsApp number 0786 316 316. We're hanging out with Phoebe Maina. We are talking about abuse in relationships. Lesikuya Clinic, relationship clinic, focusing on abuse in marriage, and not just marriage, even when you're still dating. And we are looking at what point do you say enough is enough? You know, enough is enough, or do you unakaa tu hapo unavumilia? Those are some of the things we are looking at. If you have any questions for us today, 20316 is the SMS line. WhatsApp number 0786 316 316. We're hanging out with Phoebe Maina, relationship coach and also executive director of Dignified Children International. Phoebe, there's a message here from Naomi in Eldoret. She says, "Good morning, Pasi. Thank you for today's topic. It isn't marriage alone, even dating. These abusers are narcissists and they target emphatic persons. I dated one who separated me from my friends. So controlling, always accusing me of one thing or another. They beat their partners up. Also, so hard to break up with them because they never let go. They even track one's movement. They also gaslight. People should run away when they sense this." So let's talk about those who are not yet married. They're still dating. Are there some red flags one should not ignore? Are there some telltale signs that this is dangerous ground we are trading on?
Yes, there are.
Talk to us about those ones.
Yeah. One, the partner is quite controlling, and the first thing they do is they separate you from your friends, and they act jealous as a sign of love. You know, like they'll start telling you, "Oh, I saw you hanging out with James. It looks like James likes you more, and you know, it's like you're cheating on me with James." You know, just trying to create some jealousy, and also to show you like they love you more, and so they want to spend quote unquote time with you. And it looks like you're spending more time with your friends and you don't prioritize them. So they're always whining that you don't prioritize them, you prioritize your friends more than him or more than her. So the first thing they do is alienate you from your friends or even from your family. So that even by the time the abuse becomes intense, you will not even notice and you will not have a fallback plan, or rather you will not have anyone to support you.
What about those who...
the other thing...
Yeah?
Sorry?
The other thing?
Oh, the other thing is they want to control every movement. Like they want to know where are you, whom are you with, at what time are you going home, you know, all that kind of thing.
I'm wondering, sometimes you're dating and you notice that this person can't control their anger. When they love deeply. When they're angry deeply. Wale wakurusha masahani na masufuria na is that something one should ignore?
You shouldn't ignore. Actually, the way they treat others when you're with them should tell you a lot more about themselves. Like you would even go to a restaurant and maybe something happens with the waiter, the way they respond to that waiter, don't ignore. They will respond the same way to you, or even treat you worse than they treated the waiter.
Very true. I've also had situations where people are still dating, but they get violent. And for some reason, we always think that when we get married, things will change. You know, yeye unipiga ndio lakini ananipenda. What would you tell somebody who comes to you with a story like that one?
It's a lie. Adults don't change. What you see is what you will have in marriage. What you see when dating is what you see in marriage. So don't get into a marriage thinking that this person will change, or thinking that you're the person who will change him. You can never change a person. You leave that work to God.
You know, it always amazes me how people think that tukioana atabadilika, you know. And I love what you said. What you see is what you get. In fact, sometimes what you see will be magnified in marriage.
That's true. That's very true.
Very true. So let's talk about At what point do I say enough is enough? Because sometimes you hear stories and you wonder, why did you stay? Or sometimes you hear somebody killed their spouse and the family and the relatives tell you, alikuwa wakipigana kutoka kitambo, and you wonder, why did they stay? So at what point does somebody say enough is enough?
Okay, one, I think as a society, we need to have these conversations more often. And the decision of leaving an abusive relationship or an abusive marriage lies on the person.
Okay.
And nobody can take you out of an abusive relationship. At the end of the day, it's you to make that decision. But for one to make that decision, you can't say it will get up to this point for the person to leave. But what is needed is self-awareness and also healing. If that person is not even aware of the abuse, it doesn't matter whether you're the mother, you're the father, you're the closest friend, you keep telling them, why are you still with that person? You know, they still have some inner wounds. They still have some maybe childhood trauma that they are dealing with. And until they heal and they also are aware of this abuse, they can never leave. So you might even force them or talk them to leaving the relationship, but after 2 weeks or after a month, they are back. And as a society, we are quick to judge and say, oh my goodness, what is wrong with this person? Why did she go back? You know, is she that stupid? But I think we can be patient with them, but the best you can do to a friend who is undergoing abuse, I think, is maybe connect them with a therapist so that they go through the therapy, and through the therapy, they'll become self-aware and they will start the process of healing. And by then, they'll be able to make the decision to leave. But just talking to them and telling them how bad and evil and abusive their partner is, it doesn't help.
I find that very interesting, because for the person on the outside, and you're looking at this couple and you're thinking, what is wrong with you? So you just walk away. So basically what you're saying is that it's not that easy.
It isn't. It isn't. And we blame them instead of helping them. Yeah.
Wow. I never thought of it that way, but I'm just wondering, for that person who may be listening in, because sometimes, let's talk about a Christian relationship. I've heard of situations where you're married to a pastor, na anakuchapa na, lakini akuchapi na injili, laying hands on you without prayer. You know, and sometimes there's first of all, there's the public image that you're seeking to preserve. You know, we are a Christian family, we are a Christian couple, maybe we are even very active in church. Or like I said, maybe we are the ones who are leading the church. And you're caught in between this situation where, what will people say? What does the Bible say about walking away and divorce? But I'm being abused every day. It's just the order of the day. Physical abuse, emotional abuse, words are thrown at me. How does somebody navigate through such murky waters? Are you there, Amma? We've lost you. Did you get the question?
I'm there. But the last word I didn't hear.
Yeah, I'm saying, if
I got the last question I missed.
If you're in such a situation where people know you're a Christian, or maybe you're even the pastors in the church, but there's all this abuse going on, and you're caught in between, what will the people think? What does the Bible say about divorce and separation? But I'm still living a miserable life here. So I'm just wondering, how does a person in such a situation navigate through all these murky waters?
You know what? That goes back to child programming, where you're programmed to please people and to have this nice image. And so unless that person goes through therapy and healing, they cannot live, because they still want to please people and to keep that image in the church. Actually, there has been such many cases in the the programs of gender-based violence that I've led, where people would come and say, you know, they're in such a situation and they're in church.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you go through healing, you go through therapy, you will not care about what people say. It will be about your sanity,
Mm-hmm.
your safety, and your peace, and also fulfilling your purpose on this earth. And you cannot fulfill it when you're sick, when you're hurting, and when you're dying from within. But you have to go through the therapy.
Yeah.
You have to go through self-awareness, and once you are self-aware, and now your confidence has been restored, pleasing people will be the last thing in your mind.
You know, sometimes there's this mambo ya nyumba usipeleke nje. I don't know whether you've had that statement. Mambo ya familia.
Yes. A
Mambo
lot.
ya familia usipeleke nje. And so because of that, and because we are cultured that way, a lot of people
Yeah.
will not seek therapy. They will not talk to a professional. They will keep this thing to themselves and they will die
no.
with it. How do you deal with that? Can such a
I
person
think-
really be helped?
It's really hard. It's really difficult because I've dealt with a number of such,
Uh-huh.
and still it goes back to therapy. But I think also the church needs to open up to that, because I can give an example of a lady I talked to, and the husband held a very high position in church,
Yeah.
but he was very abusive. And so when the lady asked her, now that our marriage is having issues, can't we go and talk to the pastor? And what did the husband tell her? The pastors also have the same issues as we have, so they
Oh.
will not help us much.
Oh.
Yeah. So now when it gets to that, unless now the lady herself as an individual seeks healing as an individual, and there is also a lot of information online on dealing with narcissists, dealing with abuse. And if she doesn't want to talk to somebody, she
Yeah.
can start, reading online. There is also support groups for such.
Mm-hmm.
And they are very secure, they are very safe, they are online, both in Kenya and also international. Somebody can join such support groups and also get information. And with time, you'll start, the healing journey.
Okay.
And they can also now propose, they do a therapy with the husband. But that can only work if he is also willing and if he sees that there is a problem. Because there are those who will say, I think our marriage is a bliss. There's
Yeah,
nothing wrong.
exactly.
Where they abuse you every day. But because the world and the church sees like you guys are thriving, so you should keep at it and you should keep, you should keep acting like you are a bliss, you are thriving.
Yeah.
And you can put all these photos and on Facebook and show people, couple goals and all
Yes.
that. But you see, the pictures and the likes and the comments, they don't keep you going.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you go back to your bed and you're crying alone,
Wow.
And
Wow.
before you know it, you are a shell of yourself.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
Listen to this one. We'll talk about this one shortly. This one says it's not easy to walk away from a woman's perspective because of societal expectations. When a marriage falls, the woman is always asked what she did or did not do to keep things together. So we'll talk a bit about that in the next short while. We have about 23 more minutes. It's the Relationship Clinic. We are focusing on abuse. When do you say enough is enough? Talk to me if you have a question this morning. 20316 SMS line, WhatsApp number 0786 316 316. It is the Relationship Clinic. We are focusing on abuse in relationships. At what point do you say enough is enough? We are hanging out with Phoebe Maina. Phoebe Maina is a relationship coach. She is also the executive director, Dignified Children International. Phoebe, quite a number of questions and scenarios coming in. I know there's a question I'd asked earlier, but let's pause on that a bit. This one seems a bit too serious. Maybe we can attend to this one. She says her name, I won't mention her name, but she says, my life is in threats. This is the second time this guy is trying to kill me. If I won't love him, he says he will kill himself and then he will kill me. And he is married. I break up with him, but he doesn't want to admit it. I'm a single mom of 3 teenagers. Blood pressure is high today because I'm just stressed. What should I do? So she's a single mother of 3 teenagers. She's in a relationship with this guy who is married. She's been trying to cut off this relationship. The guy doesn't want to hear anything of it. She's threatening that if you cut off the relationship, I will kill you and I will kill myself. How does she handle this?
Wow, no, that one is serious. It's a serious case,
Yes.
and she needs to report because it's not just a threat.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she needs to report to the police. There is also a GBV hotline. I think I need to get it. That is from the Ministry of Gender, where they also offer rescue. There is also another organization that is doing an amazing job on rescuing victims of gender-based violence. It's called Usikimye. It's on Facebook, and they would also help.
Yeah, I so agree with you. This one is not something to take lightly. This one, and a police direct, and a police direct and report it, because people who say things like those, sometimes eventually they end up acting out these things. Listen,
they do.
Yeah, listen to this other one. I won't also mention names. Today I'm not mentioning names because of the kind of issues we are talking about. This one says, 10 years of abuse in my marriage, and it's getting worse by the day. Physical, psychological, emotional abuse. My wife does not respect me. She doesn't cook for me. She doesn't wash my clothes. No conjugal rights. She insults me before our only son, who's 7 years old. I feel torn apart to very small pieces. I tried involving our families, both sides, but nothing. I involved my pastor. Nothing. Best couples, nothing. There's literally no one I can go to help us. I got married in a church wedding and I've given up. I'm saved, but I'm walking away. Otherwise, it's bad. There's no insult I've never had from her in this world. What do you do in a situation like that?
I think the guy, he's in a toxic relationship, as he describes it. And I think for now, the decision to leave or to walk away lies within the victim. So what I would advise is he sees a therapist right now, or rather he starts the journey of healing with a therapist. And after undergoing therapy, he will be able to make the right decision.
Yeah. I find that sometimes men who find themselves in a situation like this, it really becomes hard. Just like the other SMS was talking about how society looks at women when a relationship goes bad. I think there's also a perception society has when it comes to men being abused in a relationship, because the general thought pattern is that men are the abusers, men are the leaders, men are the strong ones in the relationship. And so when you have a man like this one who's being abused, emotionally, physically, psychologically, sexually, he's being abused from all fronts. Even when you talk to people, people look at you and they're thinking like, seriously, what kind of a man are you? You can't handle things in your own house. And sometimes you feel so alone, you don't know where to turn to. Are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're saying he needs to find therapy?
Yeah, I'm there, but I didn't hear the last question.
You're saying
he needs therapy, and there is nothing wrong with finding therapy even as a man. You know, gone are the days, and I still feel we shouldn't tell men that they should be strong, you know, and they shouldn't cry, and they should persevere even when they're in a toxic relationship. You know, that man will die, you know, you know, and that is why you find most of them committing suicide, or, you know, just getting or sinking into depression, because the society does not allow them to speak up. The society doesn't allow them to seek for help. You know, we need to normalize that. They need to seek help, because a number of them are also suffering in relationships or even in marriage.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I'm just thinking, even in this kind of a situation, This woman is not just damaging her husband, she's also damaging her son, because her son is exposed to all this and she has no idea what she's doing to her son. You know, me, if you ask me, I think that gentleman needs to walk away for the sake of his own sanity and his son's sanity, because staying in that environment is not helping him, it's not helping his son, it's not even helping his wife. You know, maybe the wife has got issues she hasn't dealt with herself and she's just projecting them onto her husband. It's really a tight situation. It is a tight situation. I pray that he's listening and that he will heed your advice to be able to find somebody to talk to and find some therapy.
Yeah, he can get the therapy while he's away out of that situation. Yeah.
Okay, so there was this issue before we took the break. It says it's not easy to walk away. This is from a woman's perspective because of the societal expectations. When a marriage falls, the woman is always asked what she did or did not do to keep things together. What are your thoughts concerning that statement?
That is very true. We put so much pressure, pressure on women.
Yeah.
Where when the marriage fails, it's like, what did you do? What didn't you do? You should have stayed because of the children. And one thing I say as an advocate for children, telling a woman to stay in a toxic a toxic marriage because of the children is very misleading, because you're destroying those children. They wake up, they see a broken mother, they see the father abusing the mom. And so you're just programming them and telling them, hey, this is how marriage should be like.
Yeah.
This is, you should persevere, you should be like this. And now you're just developing damaged children, and they will also become abusive or become victims of abuse because of what they have gone through. And so if you're talking about protecting your children and being there for your children, you cannot stay in a toxic marriage for the sake of children, as the society demands.
I so agree with that. Another question here is saying, how do you deal with somebody who changes midstream? They were such a nice person when you're dating, you got married, they were such a nice person, and somewhere along the line something flips and they become abusive. It's like, this is a totally different person than the person I married. How do you deal with that?
I don't think people change.
Say that again?
I don't think people change. As I said earlier, there must have been red flags during dating, but because you're so much in love, you ignored the red flags. And so now when you get into marriage, they start manifesting the true character, and that is when you think they have changed, but they have not changed. They have just graduated to the next level of who they were when you were dating. Yeah.
Wow. You know, when you have children who are concerned, you know, I'm just thinking of that child who's listening into this kind of a conversation. Maybe they are in their teens, and their parents have got this explosive, super abusive relationship. What can a child do? Is there really anything they can do?
One, as a child, they should not blame themselves for that, because most of the times the children think it's because of, they start blaming themselves because of the relationship of their parents, and they shouldn't. It's got nothing to do with them, and they can select their own path, and they should not try to reconcile, or rather, because sometimes the children are used in this abusive relationship.
Yes.
So one partner may use the other child. May use one child to punish the other parent, or rather to punish the other spouse, which I find quite immature, because you shouldn't bring children in your problems.
Very true.
You should keep them away from that. But as a child, as a teenager, it's good to get maybe counseling, because you'll find that they're very, destroyed, and there is that programming, and they need counseling. Such children, I think they need counseling. They need to talk to somebody And they should also be careful not to side with any parent, because most of the parents, they'll tell them, oh, your dad did this, your dad is the problem, your dad is like this, you know. And in that case, maybe the dad has been very good, a good dad to that
the children,
child, or a good mom to that child.
Yeah. I hear you. This is a comment coming in on the other issue that we talked about. This one says, you're breaking. I can't hear you.
I can hear you now.
Oh, you can hear me. There's a message concerning the whole issue of the lady with the married man. This one says, concerning that mother of 3 with a man threatening suicide and murder, she should report the man to the police and get a restraining order and cut off all communications and interactions with him as soon as possible. Also keep her children totally away from him. That man is a narcissist psychopath. Run when you can and don't engage him. That's a comment coming in from one of the listeners. Now, Phoebe, our time is almost up. I'm just thinking, what about that person who's listening in today? And they recognize that is me they're talking about. I am the one who verbally abuses my spouse. I am the one who's trying to manipulate my spouse emotionally. I am the one who gets angry and I get physical and I don't like who I am. What can I do?
I think also the abusers, just the same way I recommended therapy for the victims, even the abusers need therapy, because the abusers are also sick people.
We are losing you. Unakatika katika, my friend.
With
we can't hear you.
As children.
You need to start. You need to start again. Start again.
The internet is shaky. Is it better now?
Yeah, now we can hear you. Start from the beginning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was saying the abusers are also sick people, and sometimes they find themselves, do what their parents do, and others are dealing with anger and also pain from what they went through as children. Maybe it's a woman who underwent rape or was sexually abused by her relatives or even her parents. And so they have carried that anger to adulthood and also into the relationship. And they just are projecting that anger onto you. And so you married a sick person. And so this abusive person needs to see a therapist so that they can also heal their inner wounds, so that they are able to relate in a healthy way.
Very, very true. Thank you so much, Phoebe.
But they also have to have self-awareness. Like they have to know and admit, I have a problem and I need help.
Very true. Because unless they get to that place where they admit they have a problem, they will not look for the help.
That's true.
Wow. Phoebe, our time is up, but thank you so much for your time. Despite the internet connections that we've been having, internet problem connections that we've been having, I think we communicated a message today. So thank you for availing yourself.
Okay. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really enjoyed the show. And I hope somebody who listened and needed to hear something, maybe one thing or the other will help them to make the right decision and also to seek the help that they need.
Very true. I so agree with that. If you're tuned in today and you are in an abusive relationship, especially Christians, we get so tight on the issue that God hates divorce. But do you think God would want you to stay there and die? Sometimes it calls for separation, mujisort. And so if you're in an abusive relationship, even if you're married to a pastor or mzee wa kanisa, find somebody to talk to. Don't just vumilia. You will vumilia until we come for your funeral. It's not worth it. So let's find help if we are in an abusive relationship, whether it's physical abuse, psychological abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse. find help because help is available. Have yourselves an amazing day.
For this and more of our shows, log on to www.familymediaonline.com to enjoy a wide variety of programs from current affairs to testimonials and features, pastoral and inspirational shows, kids entertainment, and so much more. Also stream live on www.familymedia.tv.